I had 43 missed calls from my family before I even knew they remembered my name. 7 years of nothing. Then, in one single night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. And when I finally sat down and listened to every single voicemail, I realized not one of them said, "I'm sorry." They all said the exact same 2 words. My name is Maya Bennett. I'm 31 years old. And before I tell you what those 2 words were, I need you to understand what it cost me to get to the place where hearing them didn't break me. If you enjoy real-life family drama and emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories. You're going to want to be here for the ending. It was a Tuesday in March, and I was in a glass-walled conference room in Nashville, wrapping up a budget review with my team, and my phone started lighting up on the table face down. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again and again. By the time the meeting ended, I had 43 calls, almost all from Ohio area codes I hadn't seen in 7 years. I closed my office door before I played a single one. My younger sister Brittany, first, sounding light and breezy, like she was calling about brunch plans. "Hey, it's me. It's been a while. I know. Call me back, okay? It's kind of important." My father, Frank, next, halting and uncomfortable. "Hey, sweetheart, your mom and I, well, things have been rough lately. We could really use your help." My mother, Carol, clipped and controlled, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. "Maya, this is your mother. I don't know what you've been doing all this time, but family is family. We need to talk." My brother, Tyler, chewing on something, talking around a mouthful of food, like nothing in the world had happened. "Yo, sis. Heard you're doing pretty good out there. I've got this business idea. Could really use some backing. Hit me back." 43 voicemails. 0 apologies. And every single one, circling back to the same 2 words. Help me. I'm going to tell you exactly how I got from a Greyhound bus station with $200 in my pocket to a corner office. And exactly what happened the night I walked back into the town that tried to erase me. But to understand why those 2 words landed like a slap instead of an olive branch, you have to go back to a kitchen table on a Thanksgiving night, 7 years earlier. I grew up in Cedar Falls, Ohio. Population just under 5,000. The kind of town where everybody's business is everybody else's business by sundown. Thanksgiving at my parents' house meant my mother's good china, 15 relatives packed elbow to elbow, and my father pouring wine like silence was something you could drown if you used enough of it. I was 23, working 2 jobs, waiting tables at a diner downtown, answering phones at a real estate office in the afternoons, and saving every dollar I could. My sister Brittany had just gotten a promotion. Same salary as before, fancier title. My mother stood at the head of the table that night and raised her glass. "To Brittany," she said. "Our shining star. Always making this family proud." 15 people raised their glasses. I raised mine too. Nobody asked what I was doing with my life. Nobody asked about the night classes I was taking, or the apartment I was saving up for. I was furniture in that house. But I'd come to dinner with one question. I waited until the plates were cleared, and the room had settled into that warm hum of relatives, talking over each other. And then I asked it. "Mom, is there still money left in the account Grandma Eleanor set up for us?" The table went dead silent. Not the comfortable kind. The kind where you can feel something has just gone terribly wrong, and you're the only one who doesn't know what. My mother set her coffee cup down, slow and deliberate. She looked at me, then around the table at everyone watching. And when she spoke, her voice was sugar-sweet in a way that made my skin crawl. "This is what I deal with," she said. "Not to me. To all of them. She's been acting unstable for months." Nobody defended me. My aunt patted my hand and told me my mother just wants what's best. I excused myself to the kitchen and started washing dishes. Because that's what I always did at family things. Clean up while everyone else celebrated. That's when I heard it. My mother's voice through the doorway, low, talking to my aunt. "Eleanor's fund went to Brittany's sorority dues and her car payment. Maya doesn't need it. She's not going anywhere anyway." I stood there with the water running over my hands, and something in my chest went very, very cold. Grandma Eleanor had set up education accounts for both of us, $12,000 each. She told me herself, 2 years before she passed, sitting at her kitchen table holding my hands. "This is for your future, sweetheart. Nobody can touch it but you." Somebody had touched it. I walked back into that dining room and asked my mother straight out. She didn't even flinch. "You're being dramatic, Maya. You always make everything about money. You sound just like your grandmother. Always stirring things up." She said Grandma Eleanor's name like it was something to scrape off her shoe. And that's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern with a victim. And the victim was me. 10 minutes later, my mother gathered everyone in the living room. I'd seen this performance before. Different holiday, same choreography. I've tried to keep this private, she said, dabbing at a dry eye with a napkin. But I think everyone needs to know. Maya hasn't been well. I've been covering for her. But tonight, she gestured at me, like I was Exhibit A in a trial nobody told me I was on trial for. I looked at my father. He stared at the carpet and said nothing. I looked at my brother. He gave a small nod. Not to me, to her. I looked at my sister. She was scrolling her phone. 15 relatives in that room. Not one of them asked, Maya, are you okay? I went upstairs. I packed a suitcase. $200 in tip money. A winter coat. And a small wooden box my grandmother had left me. One I hadn't opened in 2 years because opening it meant admitting she was really gone. My mother's voice followed me to the front door. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. I didn't slam it. I closed it gently, because somewhere in me, I already knew I'd never open it again. Outside, it was snowing in Cedar Falls, Ohio. I had a suitcase, $200, and nowhere on earth to go. I bought a Greyhound ticket that night. The furthest I could get for what I had was Nashville, Tennessee. 38 hours on a bus. My suitcase between my knees. My grandmother's box on my lap. I didn't sleep. I just watched the country scroll past the window and tried to remember the last time anyone in my family had asked me a real question. One that wasn't a complaint, dressed up like a question mark. I couldn't think of a single one. There was a woman next to me, heading to see her grandkids. Somewhere outside of Knoxville, she handed me half a sandwich and didn't ask why I was crying. She just gave me a napkin and looked out the window. Sometimes a stranger gives you more grace in 10 seconds than your own family manages an end. 23 years. I spent my first nights in Nashville in a women's shelter, then a hostel that smelled like bleach and bad decisions. No credit history, no references, no emergency contact on any form. I wrote N.A. for 2 years, until I had someone worth listing. What nobody warns you about is the low, constant hum of knowing that somewhere back home, 15 people are telling a story about you. And you can't correct a single word of it. Here's the thing, silence also gave me. My first morning in that hostel, I woke up and realized something was missing. It took me a full minute to place it. My mother's voice, that constant internal narration, you're not enough, had gone quiet. Like someone had finally found the off switch on a radio I'd been hearing my whole life. I found work within 2 weeks. Receptionist at a small consulting firm called Harlow & Co. 8 employees, cramped office above a coffee shop, helping communities apply for development grants. It wasn't glamorous, it was a paycheck. The woman who ran it, Carla Whitfield, noticed me before I noticed myself. I'd reorganized 3 years of scattered client files in 4 days. Color-coded, cross-referenced, nobody asked me to. I just couldn't stand the chaos. She stopped at my desk on a Friday. You reorganized 3 years of files in 4 days. Who does that? Someone who needed something to control, I said. She didn't laugh. She didn't pity me. She pulled up a chair. Tell me what else you see that's broken. Over the next 6 years, while my family was busy telling the town of Cedar Falls that I was getting care at a facility, they never said which one. They didn't need to. I was rebuilding myself one late night at a time. Online business classes after work. Rice and beans on Mondays. Pasta on Tuesdays. Clothes from the thrift store. No loans. No shortcuts. I moved from reception to project coordinator to junior consultant after I caught a $6,000 billing error nobody else flagged. Your accountant doesn't check the math twice, Carla told me. I check everything twice, I said. It's how I grew up. She didn't ask what that meant. She didn't need to. By year 6, the company had grown from 8 employees to over 100, with offices in 2 states. Carla sat me down and offered me a title I never could have imagined for myself. Chief Operating Officer. I wasn't rich, drove a used car, and lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. But by my own standards, the standards of the girl who slept in a shelter, I was breathing air I might never thought I'd reach. My best friend at the company, Nina, was the one who finally got me to open that wooden box. 5 years it had sat on my nightstand, untouched. Moved from the shelter to the hostel, to my own apartment. You've been staring at that thing for 5 years, she said one night over takeout. It's not a bomb. Open it. So I did. Inside was a strand of pearls my grandmother wore to church every Sunday. A photograph of me at 6 years old, gap-toothed and grinning. The only childhood photo of me that existed anywhere, because my mother had never once hung my picture in that house. And a letter, folded once, in my grandmother's careful, shaky handwriting. Maya, if you're reading this, it means you had the courage to leave. Good. I wanted to leave my whole life, but I was afraid. Don't be like me. Don't hold this family together at the cost of yourself. You don't owe anyone your life. There was a postscript. The education fund. I left instructions with my lawyer, Mr. Garrison. Ask your Aunt Donna. She knows. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. For years I'd thought, keep this family together was my grandmother's wish. It wasn't. It was my mother's wish, said in front of my grandmother, under my mother's roof, with my mother listening. This letter, hidden like contraband, was what my grandmother had actually meant. 6 months before those 43 voicemails, an email landed in my work inbox. Subject line, from your Aunt Donna, please read. She told me she was sorry for staying silent for so many years. She'd been afraid of my mother. Her mother has a way of making people disappear from her life, and I wasn't brave enough to be next. And she told me something that made my jaw tighten. The lawyer in Columbus had confirmed it. Grandma Eleanor had left $12,000 to each of us, in separate accounts, with separate signatures required. My mother had forged my signature and moved everything into Brittany's account. My aunt knew, because she'd witnessed the original documents herself. The statute of limitations had run out years ago. There was nothing to file. The forgery, and the fact that my mother stole from me, and then called me unstable for asking about it, that told me everything I needed to know about the architecture of my entire childhood. My aunt added one more line at the end of that email. Your mother is chairing the Cedar Falls Community Gala this spring. The whole town will be there. I didn't know yet why that mattered. It would. 2 months later, Carla walked into my office holding her phone like a winning lottery ticket. A pastor in some small Ohio town was looking for a keynote speaker for an annual community fundraiser, someone in development work, with a personal connection to small towns. I recommended you, she said. You grew up in a small town in Ohio, right? She had no idea which town. She had no idea who'd be sitting in that audience. It's called Cedar Falls, I said. Perfect. You'll know the area. I almost said no. The word was right there on my tongue. And then I thought about my grandmother's letter, about the door closing behind me in the snow, about 7 years of being a ghost in a story I never wrote. I'll do it, I said. I went home that night and looked up the event page. Committee Chair, Carol Bennett, my mother. I texted my aunt. I know about the gala. I'm the keynote speaker. Her reply came back in 30 seconds. I didn't tell her. Be ready. I was going back to Cedar Falls, on my own terms, through the front door. 2 weeks before the gala, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my sister Brittany sat down at her kitchen table, freshly divorced, 3 months behind on her mortgage, desperate for a cosigner her own credit couldn't and typed my name into Google, for the very first time in 7 years. She wasn't looking for me. She was looking for money. First result, my LinkedIn. Chief Operating Officer, Harlow & Co. Second result, a regional business magazine profile, rising leaders in community development. Third, a quote from Carla calling me the operational backbone of everything we've built. My aunt told me later that Brittany stared at the screen without blinking for a full minute. Then she called our mother. Mom, you need to see this. See what? Maya. She's a COO of a real company. She's been in business magazines. The sound on the other end of the line wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was a sharp inhale, the sound a person makes when the story they'd told for 7 years catches fire in their own hands. That's impossible, my mother said. She couldn't even finish the sentence, because finishing it meant admitting the lie had always been hers. That evening my phone started ringing in that conference room in Nashville. 43 times. You already know what those voicemails said. My sister, breezy at first, then cracking by the last one. My father, asking for help with a rough patch. My mother, demanding I call, because family is family. My brother, pitching me a business idea between bites of food. Help me, help me, help me. I called my best friend Nina that night. My family found me, I said. Which part hurts? She asked. The part where I'm not surprised. She let that sit instead of filling it with comfort, because she knew that's what I actually needed. I didn't call any of them back. I didn't block their numbers either. Blocking felt like a reaction, and I was done reacting to people who only remembered my name when they needed something from it. 3 days later, an email landed from my mother. After everything this family has done for you, you can't even return a phone call. I've spent 7 years defending you to people who asked where you were, and this is how you repay me. A LinkedIn message from my sister. Congratulations, I guess. But family is family, Maya. I need a cosigner on a loan. You owe us that much. A public Facebook post from my brother, tagging half our extended family. Funny how some people get a fancy title and forget where they came from. #ungrateful, #family first. 41 likes. I screenshotted every single one, not for a lawsuit, for myself. For the mornings I might wake up and wonder if I'd imagined the whole thing, if maybe I should have tried harder. Proof that I wasn't the problem. The Cedar Falls Community Center was decorated like someone had thrown a wedding for the entire community. 200 seats, nearly full, white tablecloths, a banner over the stage that read, "Building Tomorrow, Together." I came in through the speaker's entrance, wearing a charcoal blazer, my hair pulled back, a badge on my chest that read, Maya Bennett, COO, Harlow & Co., keynote speaker. Through the doorway, I could see my mother at the center table in a navy dress, greeting guests like she owned the building. My father beside her, quiet as ever. My sister in an outfit she probably couldn't afford. My brother by the buffet, scrolling his phone. My entire family, 20 feet away, with absolutely no idea who was about to take that stage. Pastor introduced me. He had no idea about my history with this town either. She grew up in a small town, started from the ground up, and now serves as chief operating officer of a firm that's impacted over 50,000 families across 2 states. Please welcome Maya Bennett. I stepped into the spotlight, and for one single second, I was 23 years old again, standing in that living room, while my mother told 15 people I was broken. Then I looked out at the crowd. My mother's smile evaporated. Her hands gripped the edge of the white tablecloth, knuckles going pale. My father set his water glass down so hard, it sloshed onto the linen. My sister's hand flew to her chest, her mouth opening with no sound coming out. My brother's fork froze in midair. And then 200 people in that room. The same neighbors, the same church members, the same people who'd been told for 7 years that I was unstable, rose to their feet and gave me a standing ovation. My mother was the only person left sitting. I gave my keynote, 20 professional, polished minutes on funding strategies and grassroots organizing. And then, near the end, I let the script fall away. I grew up in a small town like this one, I said. Some of you might remember me. A murmur went through the room. I left 7 years ago, with $200 in a suitcase. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because staying was costing me something I couldn't afford to lose anymore. I was told I was unstable. I was told I needed help. The truth is, the help I needed was distance. I never once looked at my mother's table. I never said her name. I didn't have to. I saw a woman in the 3rd row, my old 10th grade English teacher, press her hand to her mouth. I heard the whispers start, quiet at first, then spreading like a struck match. That's Carol's daughter, the one she said was in treatment. She's a COO. When I finished, the room stood again, longer this time. My mother sat with her napkin clenched in both fists, her face the color of raw steak. Afterward, my mother cut through the crowd with a smile bolted on for the room. Maya, sweetheart, what a surprise. Why didn't you tell us you were coming? You had my number, I said. For 7 years. Her voice dropped. You embarrassed this family with that speech. I didn't name anyone. If people drew their own conclusions, that's not my responsibility. My sister appeared at her shoulder. We've been trying to reach you. We need to talk about the family. I heard your voicemails. All 43. Not one apology. Just help me. That's not a family reaching out. That's a collection call. My father, low and uncomfortable. Let's not do this here. Dad, you had 7 years to not do this. Dad, you chose not to. My brother laughed. You think you're better than us now? No. I think I'm done being less than you needed me to be. I straightened my blazer, nodded once to the pastor watching near the stage, and walked out. Steady. Even. No running. I'd done enough of that 7 years ago, in the snow, with a suitcase. That night, in a hotel room 3 miles from the house I grew up in, I wrote one email to all 4 of them. I'm writing this once. I'm not co-signing any loan. I'm not funding anyone's business idea. I'm not angry. I'm clear. If any of you want a real relationship with me, It doesn't start with a voicemail asking for help. It starts with an honest conversation, where someone says what happened out loud and actually owns it. Not, we did our best. Not, that's in the past. An apology, specific, for the fund, for the lies, for 7 years of telling this town I was in a facility while I was building a life. Until that happens, my answer is no. I pressed send and turned off the light. In the weeks that followed, the story my mother had spent 7 years building came apart the way wet paper does. The town she'd performed for turned the same scrutiny on her that she'd once aimed at me. She resigned from the gala committee to focus on family, the irony sitting in that sentence like a stone in a shoe. My sister lost her house when the loan fell through without a cosigner. She moved back into my old childhood bedroom. My brother's girlfriend left him after seeing the Facebook post calling me ungrateful. You publicly shamed your own sister for not giving you money, she told him. That's not who I want to be with. And 6 weeks after the gala, a letter arrived at my office. Not an email, not a text. An actual envelope, my father's careful slanted handwriting on the front. Maya, I don't know if I have the right to say this, but I'm sorry. Not for your mother. For me. For sitting in that chair and saying nothing. For every time I told you, don't upset your mother, when I should have told her to stop. I wasn't keeping the peace. I was keeping my comfort. You deserved a father who chose you, even when it was loud. I didn't. I'll carry that. It was the first real apology I'd gotten from anyone in that family. I read it twice and put it in my desk drawer. I haven't answered yet. I'm letting that decision take whatever shape it needs to. A few months later, on a regular Sunday evening, I'm standing in my kitchen in Nashville, stirring a pot of pasta, while Nina argues with my neighbor about whether hot sauce belongs on garlic bread. Carla's on my couch with a glass of wine, telling a story about a grant proposal that went sideways. My table seats 6, mismatched chairs, bought secondhand, and it's mine. This is my Sunday dinner, every week. No obligation, no performance. Everyone here because they want to be. I think about another table, a longer one, set with better china, in a house where I was invisible. This one's smaller, the wine's cheaper, and I have never felt more seen in my life. I used a small piece of my own salary to start a scholarship through my old university, for students who check no family contribution on their financial aid forms, not because their parents can't pay, but because their parents won't. I named it after my grandmother. Let the whole town Google that. If you recognize any of this, the role of being the family scapegoat, silence that only breaks when someone needs a favor, the story other people wrote about your life while you were still living it. I need you to hear something. You're not crazy, you're not ungrateful, you're not selfish. Those words people throw at you when you stop shrinking, those are the sound of someone losing control of a story they never had the right to tell in the first place. The 2 words my family said to me were help me. The 2 words I needed to hear were, I'm sorry. Those are not the same sentence. You don't owe anyone the first one until they've earned the right to say the second. The bravest thing I ever did wasn't mild. Walking out that door with $200 and snow on the ground. It was not walking back in 7 years later, when all they had to offer me were 2 words that still weren't an apology. My name is Maya Bennett. I'm 31 years old, and the most expensive thing I own isn't a title, or a corner office, or a salary. It's the silence I can finally afford. If this story meant something to you, you know what to do. Subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, if your family called you tomorrow after years of silence, what do you think they'd say first? Help me, or I'm sorry. I'll see you in the next one.